You've probably heard countless times by now that Mercedes have a porpoising issue. Mercedes' car bounces up and down the straights, and Mercedes aren't the dominant team on the grid now. So to change things up now, let us start with Mercedes. Porpoising is causing their drivers physical pain to the point that their drivers literally get off their cars limping. And now Toto Wolff has gone on record that there may be a chance Lewis Hamilton may miss the Canadian Grand Prix because of this. So why is Mercedes suffering so badly from this phenomenon? And why has Lewis Hamilton borne most of the brunt of it and not George? Well, you're going to have to stick around to find out. But before we get going, consider subscribing to the channel if you think Mercedes should scrap their current design as well. Now let's get started. From the outside looking in, Baku looked like a dominant weekend for George Russell over his teammate Lewis Hamilton, where George would be 0.212 seconds ahead of Hamilton, making Baku the third consecutive race that Russell has outpaced Hamilton. But team principal Toto Wolff later on revealed that they were running experimental setups on Lewis that costed him a good amount of lap time. To make it short and sweet, Mercedes guinea-pigged Lewis's car to know more about the W13, which cost him lap time, and in the end, a healthy back. Wolff would go on to say, Lewis has been trying some quite experimental parts on the car, and there was a different floor solution on his car that didn't work. Said Wolff after qualifying, the car was porpoising more and bottoming out to the point that it became dangerous, and then he couldn't extract the performance, so yes, it was a different spec. Toto would also be asked about Russell's current performance as of late compared to Hamilton, to which Toto would reply with, I think it's too early to try to identify a pattern because I'm very close to it and I see that in one session one is faster and then in another session the other is faster. Because the car is on a knife's edge. If you put a foot wrong in terms of experiments on the car, which need to be done in order for us to learn how to perform and where to put the car, there's 2 or 3 tenths immediately between them. The last 2 or 3 races, these experiments have gone wrong with Lewis and not with George. Many Mercedes fans believe that the team had reached the light at the end of the tunnel and finally figured out the solution to their porpoising problems back in Barcelona. But that would not be the case, as those problems returned in Monaco and worsened once the W13 hit the track in Baku. This decline back to where they were at the start of the season has made many fans and pundits believe that it is time for Mercedes to scrap their initial concept for the W13 and go the more traditional route. One they have admitted they have in their back pocket once things begin to seem unfixable. But Mercedes may still believe there is a way out of their current situation with their current concept, with Toto saying, "We are at the moment not in the hunt for a race win on merit," he said. "We are a good way behind the top teams. And we just need to see those sessions, not with the view of optimizing the single session, but with a view of understanding. And this is what we're doing and what we're going to do tomorrow and in Montreal. I think we know what the root cause of our problem is, but we don't have the answers yet of what the best solution will be," he added. "And this is what we are experimenting with at the moment. I still think there is a short-term fix which is making us more competitive, but it might not explain everything. I'd like to get the car in the right position for the second half of the year and also for next year, so the learning is more key than short-term optimization for a weekend." While it does sound nice that Toto is looking at things from a broader picture, fact of the matter is this way of seeing things is costing his drivers much pain and agony with every race weekend they go through. Earliest we've heard from both drivers about the pain they have to go through while driving the W13 was back in Imola, where George Russell would give a clear picture of what he had to deal with. In his words, the bouncing, it really takes your breath away. "It's the most extreme I've ever felt," Russell said. "I really hope we find a solution, and I hope every team struggling with the bouncing finds a solution, because it's not sustainable for the drivers to continue. This is the first weekend I've truly been struggling with my back, and almost like chest pains from the severity of the bouncing. And now it's been 3 races since Imola, and it seems like the porpoising has never been worse, as Lewis Hamilton was seen limping out of the W13 after finishing P4 in Baku. Hamilton would share what he had to go through throughout the race, saying, "I was just holding and biting down on my teeth due to the pain, and the adrenaline helped. I cannot express the pain that you experience, particularly on the straight here," Hamilton told Sky Sports F1. "At the end, you are just praying for it to end, but we were in such a good position still, 3rd and 4th, a great result for the team." The team did a great job with the strategy. Once we fix this bouncing, we'll be right there in the race, he said. But we were losing for sure, over a second just with bouncing, or at least a second with bouncing. I'll be at the factory tomorrow. We've got to have some good discussions and keep pushing. Toto, after the race, would cite this exact experience of Lewis to start the discussion for the FIA to make a standardized regulation to counter this phenomenon. Because while every team knows how to counter it, the fact of the matter is that it will cost teams and their drivers lap time, which none of them want to make, if it means losing all your chances to win the race. Toto would go on to say, I don't think you can suck it up because it's just really bad for the back. I'm not even sure we can go full length with Lewis. It's based on physical pain. It's really compressing the spine, he added. I think that most of the drivers have now come to the conclusion that it's really bad. The regulations will follow for many years. It's the moment now to say that it is a real issue and what can we do to lift everybody up. It comes after Lewis Hamilton has complained of back pain throughout the weekend in Baku. And as always, Mercedes' last year rivals, Red Bull and their team principal, have something to say about Mercedes' problems. See, among all the teams on the grid, especially the ones at the top of the standings, Red Bull have the least problems when it comes to porpoising, so a standardized regulation would make them lose all the advantage that they have over all the other teams on the grid. Team principal Christian Horner believes that Mercedes are making a bigger issue than what it is, saying, "Tell them to bitch as much as they could over the radio and make as big an issue out of it as they possibly could. Of course it is. Look, it is uncomfortable, but there are remedies to that, but it is detrimental to the car performance." What is the easiest thing to do? Complain from a safety point of view, but each team has a choice. If it was a genuine safety concern across the whole grid, then it is something that should be looked at. But if it is only affecting isolated people or teams, then that is something that the team should potentially deal with. Sky Sports News F1 reporter Martin Brundle would share the same sentiments as Horner regarding Mercedes' porpoising struggles, saying, "The teams that have got it sorted are clearly saying that's Mercedes' problem and it's not Formula One's problem. There's no doubt about it. It looks particularly uncomfortable. Of course, Mercedes can fix it by raising the car, but then they lose a huge amount of performance, so they need to get the car low, stiff on the suspension, and stiff on the side wall of the new tyres as well. And they've had to sacrifice comfort for performance. What's surprising, really, is that Mercedes just can't seem to get a handle on what looks like, actually, quite an excellent car if they could just unlock it." Hamilton has previously mentioned that he would want a car that can at least compete with Ferrari and Red Bull once the calendar reaches Silverstone, which is only a race away. And by the looks of it, Mercedes have to think fast on whether they should stick with their current concept or not. But what do you think? Should the FIA step in and mandate a standardized regulation? Or is it more of a Mercedes problem rather than an F1 problem? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.